Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is your favorite warlock practicing necromancer. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about locking it in. What do I mean by locking it in? As you know, we are coming up on winter. Okay. Where I'm at, the next 3 months is considered to be winter, roughly about the next 3, 4 months. So I get to work with the beings of death. I get to work with rituals that deal with rejuvenation, healing, and all that fun stuff. But more so, I get to sit indoors and really delve into research. I get to delve in and do deep delve studies on various systems. In this case, for this year, I've already picked out my books for um, the next couple of months. And I find them to be very challenging because I'm going to be working my body, my mind, and my spirit at the same time. So I got it all written down right here in a fresh journal. I got several journals now that are just blank because that's what I'm going to be working under. And a lot of these are a compile of various different types of knowledge. So, for an example, I'm going to read off the ones I've got written down here, which is about 29 books. Okay? Hysteron, Proteron, The Complete Guide to the Sevenfold Sinister Way, Naos, The Practical Guide to Modern Magic, The Sinister Tradition of the ONA, Codex Sirius, The Book of the Divine Black Flame of Satan, Tentatio Diabolus, The Warlock's Grimoire, Satanism, A Beginner's Guide to Religious Worship of Satan and Demons, The Black Path. For those of you that don't know what The Black Path is, it was put out by Martinet Press, and it deals with Middle Eastern philosophies of Sufism, or what is known as Sufism today. Think of them as a more radical version, okay, of both the left hand and right hand path philosophies. They bring in the rituals of animal sacrifice, the religious worship of, say, the JCI, and they bring in the wisdom and philosophies of what brings in through Hermeticism, okay? The esoteric traditions. So, and it does so from a Middle Eastern perspective, such as the title of the head mage, if you will, the magus, known as a sheik, okay? And he has apprentices that he shares his knowledge and wisdom with, or her apprentices and students with. And then they do rituals for the public. They do things from privately, if you will, for the coven based as well. So you got an inner discipleship and an outer discipleship, kind of like we'll show the public one, the light white stuff, but then we're going to do the inner discipleship and the outer discipleship separately. Very, very good stuff, and I really like that book, and it's got a lot to offer. So of course, I had to put that in there. The Devil's Quran, which is also put out by Martinet Press, and I'm also considering two other books, which is called Shirazon, Volume 1 and 2. It was also put out by Martinet Press. Let's see. Then we're going to go into more historical depths from there. And these ones here are more an in-depth study by individuals that brought in certain grimoire traditions, such as Ritual Magic by Elizabeth Butler, The Fortunes of Faust by Elizabeth Butler, Conjuring Spirits by Claire Fanger. Okay. Then you have these two books here are based off, well, these three here, I should say, because they're three different books. Between these two authors alone, between Butler and Fanger, they deal with certain grimoire traditions, such as the Sworn Book of Honorius, the Grand Grimoire, say, for an example, the Grimoire of Armadale, and so forth. It's like three, four different types of grimoires that they focus on from a ritualized magical practice, okay, from invocations and evocational processes. Then you have Greek and Roman Necromancy by Daniel Ogden, Forbidden Rites by Richard Kekeffer. Now, Richard Kekeffer's book, The Forbidden Rites, deal a lot with the MS system, if you will. Think of the Munich manuscripts. And I don't know if how many of you have actually heard that. It goes all the way back to roughly around the 13th to 11th century manuscript. Word has it that it was written in the 10th, 11th century area, and then it took like 100 or 1 or 2 centuries before it actually was put into production, if you will, book wise. And Richard Kekeffer really delved into the rituals and the rites that were experiments, if you will, in that particular book. And I love it. Elucidation of Necromancy by Peterson. Now, Joseph Peterson is a very renowned Satanist. He's an occultist. And he is perhaps one of the leading practitioners in this area. So I chose several of his books. And there's one that I'm actually considering as well. And it's based off the Enochian system. So, and I haven't written that one down because I'm still considering it. But you have, like I said, Elucidation of Necromancy. You have the 4 books of occult philosophy, because the first 3 are by Agrippa. And then the 4th one was actually forwarded by Peterson. Then you have Forbidden Rites, known as the Necromancy, the Forbidden Art, by Lucien Raffacal. You have, I'm going to probably butcher this name because this book actually comes from Eastern Europe, if you will, like some Scandinavian area, Mesopotamian region of Europe. And it's called Savart Konst Bokar by Dr. Thomas K. Johansen. Or no, Johnson. Sorry, I'm trying to read my own handwriting here. It's atrocious, like reading a doctor's. I'm telling you that right now. But yeah, this one has a lot of different types of information ranging from necromancy to occultism. If you want to get into Hermetism, getting into the Kabbalah, this is a great book for you, just to let you know. And then you have The Black Raven by Johannes Faust, also known as the Threefold Coercion of Hell. Deals with mostly angelic perspectives. The True Book of Appin. If you've ever heard of the Red Book of Appin, this is an offshoot of that. And it's by Tarl Warwick. And it's basically it's a unique system dealing with blood, animal bones, sanctification of your temple or your ritual space, utilizing things like bat's blood, crushed animal bones, human bones, the rituals that set it up, dealing with Vlad the Impaler, if you will. The whole Dracula aspect from a vampiric sense. Really love that book. It was set in a unique setting. I do recommend both of those books to you. And then you have The Key of Solomon. You got The True Black Magic by Joseph Peterson, Secrets of Solomon by Joseph Peterson, Grimorium Vernum by Joseph Peterson, the Grimoire of Honorius, the Sworn Book, otherwise known as the Constitution of Honorius, the Grimoire of Armatel, the Secret Magic of Abramelin the Mage. Now, the reason that I chose those, and I'm considering working with another aspect of demonolatry, if you will, not just demonolatry, but demonolatry, you know, is by S. Connolly. But I also want to get into the gin aspect, so I'm considering the Blackfire books by S. Ben Cayenne as well. Because over the next 3 to 4 months, what I really want to do is, and I'm going to be doing this, is I'm going to be doing a deep dive into ritualism. I'm going to be getting into the various different aspects. Because as a practitioner, we work with various different aspects of spiritualism. We don't just work with the fallen angels. We don't just work with demons. We don't just work with the Devi, the Loa, or the Orisha. We don't just work with our ancestors, ancestral magics. These books allow you, from a necromantic perspective, to connect to the spirits, into the spiritual world, to be able to open up portals and gates and vortexes to other realms, dimensions. And, a lot of the big time names, and even I have mentioned this, you know, myself, is you start with three basic practices. You deal with projection, remote viewing, and astral projection. Do not misconstrue astral projection with ghost walking. They're two different types of practices. Okay, and it's kind of like remote viewing being mistaken for projection. It's two different practices there. Projection is where you're putting your will forth to move from one dimension to another, or to go do an outer body experience. Whereas remote viewing is using your third eye to view something in another room or another location. Okay? So keep that in mind. Ghost walking is just soul traveling, you know? Whereas astral projection is just leaving your body to explore your surroundings. There are differences within them, subtle, but they're there. Now, the other ironic thing about these books and these works that I'm going to be delving into over the next 3 to 4 months is they deal with magical alphabets, magical languages, numerology, and everything. And it's been a long time since I got into magical squares. And watching E.A. Koetting's live videos on TikTok, I've kind of interacted with him a few times. He mentioned something on a couple of his videos dealing with magical squares, and it's like, I always struggled with the magical square aspects, and even after 35 years, working with the magical squares, it's hard to write them and put them in with various different names, the creation of them. But to be honest, there are aspects of utilizing the ones from the sacred magic of Abramelin the Mage. For an example, protection, or you're dealing with vile magics like getting rid of an enemy. Or in some cases, if you're in need of money, you can bring certain types of money your way, like attracting it, or you can manifest it, a certain amount, like treasure hunting, if you will. And there are beings from the Goetia, the lesser key of Solomon, that bring forth you from your ritual space into the spiritual, like Lucifer's Raphael, for an example, which will take you to a location and you get to grab as much as you can carry before he drags your ass back. Okay? Mammon is another one, but you don't want to go into greed because he will take it from you. And then, like I said, you've also got beings like Boone in Viney. Okay. Boone will help you gain money. Okay. Whereas Viney will deal with protection of your assets. Okay. And then you got another aspect if you're getting into the Grimorium Vernum, the Sworn Book of Honorius, or how about let's go with the Black Magic by, Edward Arthur White, for an example. Then you'll be dealing with another being that is quite well known, Clonic, okay, who deals with finances. So you have a lot of different choices when dealing with just money alone that you can deal with. But like I said, it comes down to you and what you're looking to do through your in-depth study and practice. Now, I like to utilize the winter aspects because it's like June. June is a great time to go on a fast. It cleanses your body. It's a month of spiritual retreat, you know, and it helps you to become closer to Deitas. Okay, it doesn't just bring you closer to Da'ath, death, but it also helps you to manifest easier and more better because you're doing the rituals and rites that you need to be doing along with your path. And you're literally bringing the three bodies together. So it's not just about your physical health, cleaning out your blood from all the sugars and crap that you built up through, going to things like fast food joints and, eating all the sweets and chips and shit like that. But it also flushes out your system and kickstarts, your healing process of your body. It's kind of like a rejuvenation of your body. That's what fasting does to you. So learning about fasting is always good. So, but the winter time, it's where things slow down. It's where things slow down and you're not as active as much. You're not out there, running the trails, going to the beach, taking the family on vacations and stuff like that. You know, you get to stay in a lot because, who doesn't want to stay in and drink cocoa with marshmallows, or sit there and relax and just read and study, sit and meditate, have your dogs laying around you, and my son's mother, she's always baffled because if it's not the cats, it's the dogs. They always align around me in a triangle. Okay, and it blows her freaking mind. I kid you not, it's funny as all hell. And or at least it used to until we got down to two. But we're looking to get Duke's brother, which will bring us up to three again. And that'll be kind of cool because I guess he's having an issue, from what I understand, with Opal's grandfather. Dog wise, the grandpa dog wise, is having a trouble with Duke's brother. So, shit happens with canines. You know how that happens if you're dog lovers. But working with dogs and animals, having a animal familiars around is another great thing to have because they're sources of information, they're wisdom, and they'll guide you and they'll protect you and the like. So there's a lot of aspects to the winter month that allow you to grow, to study, and to further your craft. Okay, not just to be able to go out and do rituals. When you go out and do rituals during the winter, you want to be doing rituals like the Necromyicon. For an example, I recommend Simon's work. It's more ritualistic, and it's been put into a ritualistic setting. And it's much, much more easier to understand than reading, like, say, Lovecraft's book or, say, for an example, Donald Tyson's work. Donald Tyson put in gates and vortexes, yes. Whereas Simon literally puts in aspects of rituals and gates, So, but he doesn't really go much into how to work with these beings. He just puts it into a ritualistic thing dealing with certain times of the year, like dealing with Inanna, Venus, the moon, working with the like, say, Nergal, for an example, which is also a member of the Goetia, by the way, demonolatry, which again brings into S. Connolly's work, but also goes into the Keys of Solomon. You know, so there's a lot of things that you can do and delve into to get into various different aspects. Now, one of the things that it comes down to is where do you want to do? Where do you want to go with your magic? What do you want to do with it? Do you want to be a dabbler? Do you want to be a book learn? Do you want to gain actual knowledge and power and apotheosis, through self mastery, self evolution, and grow? Do you want to be a full time career occultist like myself or some of these other big names that are out there? And really get to know your path. Okay. These are things that you got to decide for yourself. But like I said, working during the winter months is perhaps the best time to lock it in and to delve in, because this is where I have my own weight sets. Okay, I got my own weights here, so I don't have to go to the fucking gym. And now that I'm doing calisthenics, Tai Chi, Qigong, Taoism, and I'm doing light weights and everything, okay, you can probably tell my arms are getting huge. Okay, and that's just from the calisthenics area. I'm changing. I've changed up my eating routines. I'm doing these workout routines through calisthenics, strength training, toning, flexibility through Tai Chi and Qigong, working on my joints because of all the injuries that I've sustained over the years to my body. I wanted to get back into this shit. I was tired of the pain and suffering from that pain, so I had to do something. So the winter months allows me to do this. You know, I get to go out into the snow and wade through the snow and really use my knees. You know, but at the same time, my dogs love it. You got Siberian Huskies, purebreds. Trust me, they love the snow. I buried Opal up to her neck in snow the first winter I had her. She laid there with the biggest grin on her face. I'm talking the tongue is out, those eyes so big. She loved it. I look forward to doing that with Duke this year because I didn't get a chance to do it last year because we had the pups. We sold 5 of them, lost 3 of them. Fortunately, my sweet Ringo and Ryder passed away. So, young. But it's there. So, but yeah, work out, read, study, sit there, meditate, call on the beings that you work with, get into the magical squares, bring out the rituals and the rites, get out the herbalism, you know, create the Teflon, that is associated with those beings, draw the sigils, get out your black scrying mirror, sit comfortably. I like my chair here and my desk, and I'll tell you this right out off the bat because I can sit there, I can put on my cloak, you know, sit there with my hands in my lap. I can breathe. I got the mirror right here. I've got the sigil right here. I can focus on the sigil and bring things forth through the mirror. And a lot of it is more about me. And if you really want to learn more about scrying with blood and mirror, hemomancy, I would recommend working with the Blood Sorcery Bible, Volume 1 and 2. Okay, and that's by the blood sorceress herself, Cagliostro, the necromancer. She deals with blood magnetics. I mean, she'll take blood as a phlebotomist, a mortician, if you will, an author. She's not just a necromancer and a full-time practitioner. I believe she's from Boston, if I remember correctly. She's down that way. So that's like 5 hours from where I'm at. I love her work. And she'll take blood and freeze it and then use magnets and a lot of other applications to it. But she also gives about 20 to 30 pages worth of places where you can cut along your own body safely and responsibly to strengthen your body through blood sorcery, which is incredible because, those of us who have worked with hemomancy, bloodletting, and vampiric practices for years, We never really considered strengthening our own bodies, So that actually brought something new to the table. And I've had her books for a few years now. So I do recommend her books if you're interested in them. You can find those just about anywhere from Amazon, eBay, probably book collectors. Your local libraries can order them. Local bookstores can order them. You know, they're very cheap, under $20. You know, so I do recommend them. Like I said, just keep in mind if you're from other countries, you may have tariffs on your ass. Thank you, Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. Everything skyrocketed. It's not like we didn't see it coming, but shit happens. It's going to get worse before it gets better. That's how it always is. But yeah, so there is a lot of things that I've got planned, things that I'm going to be doing, and I've already begun. You know, and understanding the tools and the rituals of your practice, things like seances, invocations, evocations, ritualized summonings. When you think of necromancy, a lot of people think of a cloaked, hooded person standing in a circle with a triangle of evocation in a cemetery with a bag of herbs, and a manifestation of a spirit. That's only one part of it. But when you look at necromancy in general, it deals with demons, it deals with, you know, other aspects of spirits. So there's a lot that you can do there, like I said. So going into these books, going into these works, you're not just, number one, getting a refresher course about the basics and the original practices, but you're getting a refresher because every time you go in and adding a new set of books, especially things that are coming out nowadays, I always recommend the older books to people because the older books have knowledge and gnosis that you just don't see today. They have substance. The newer books today, they just don't have that fluff. You know what I'm saying? They don't have the fluff, the substance. It's mostly about sex magic. It's always about power and going rich and becoming famous and shit like that. People mostly put out books just to get noticed. It's a look at me tactic. I hate that. It's like if you've actually taken the time to study as a mage and work at it from a way of enlightenment, you know, it's about enlightenment, it's about growth, it's about knowledge. Knowledge is power. True power is undefiled wisdom, as Anton Szandor LaVey put it. And if you look at what apotheosis is, it's you becoming a god. Why serve a god when you can become a god? Not to be mistaken with what E.A. Koetting's doing. Apotheosis is you are mastering yourself. You are mastering, your own evolution. And you are applying it to bettering yourself. You're changing yourself through transmortification rites, transfiguration rites. You're doing things through transmortifying yourself. And you're really getting into the depths of just going with it to transform yourself to becoming more like the beings that you work with. And when you work with demons, you're going to have what is known as a trait of a demon. Okay, you're going to take on the personalities, unfortunately. Trust me on that. The first demon I worked with was Zaniel. Zaniel is known as the teacher of witchcraft, and he comes from the grimoire of Armadale. Okay, I worked with him for about 6 months before he even manifested to me. He wanted to see what I was willing to do, how far I was willing to take my practices to work with him. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize is that the demons don't want your soul. They don't give two shits about your soul. They want you to grow. They want you to master yourself. They want you to evolve and be like them. So becoming a teacher is my way of honoring Zaniel. And that's why I became a teacher. That's why I got into the ministry, because I like the ministry. The fact that I've got a doctorate in divinity, I look back at it and it's laughable because when I was a kid, I always thought there was a joke there. becoming a doctor and a minister. Come on. How can you not find a joke and humor in that? You know what I'm saying? But here I am, just like that. 35 years and still going strong in the occult. So that's basically what I'm talking about when I say lock it in. Number one, you're working on your body. Number two, you're working on your breathing. You're working on your mind, your discipline, your focus. You're working on your practices, and you're building that knowledge. Okay? You're building the skill set to further yourself, to better yourself. And that's what it's about. So lock it in. Put down your phone. It's all right to be on your phone during this month too, especially if you're going ghost mode or you're going monk mode for 6 months to a year, 3 months, even 4 months. It doesn't matter. You go into ghost mode, you go into monk mode, you go into God mode, whatever you want to call it. Just go with it. Use your phone maybe an hour a day, 2 hours a day max. The rest of the time, you're spending time with family. You're practicing and reading. You're studying. You're bettering yourself. You're becoming a better version of yourself. That's how growth is. And remember that through trials and tests is where true growth comes from. Okay? So lock it in and get the shit done. No more excuses. No more holding things off until tomorrow. Get the stuff together that you need and just fucking do it. Okay? Grow a pair, become a man, say what you're gonna do what you say you're gonna do. All right? Get out there and fucking do it. All right? I've already wrote it down. Okay? I wrote it down because number one, everybody will tell you by writing it down, you have made it manifested into reality. Here, you're going to slack off. Here, it is a constant visual reminder you committed to this. You committed to this. Now it's time to man up and get to it. So on one hand, I've got a notebook strictly for the Necromai Icon series. I got another one specifically for Brujeria, Palo Mayumbi, and Santeria practices. Okay? I got about 5-6 others dealing with, no, scratch that, closer to roughly 9 journals dealing with just necromancy of various different aspects. And then on top of that, one for for Satanism and demonolatry. And now I'm getting ready to go into a 3 to 4 month study on ritual and ceremonial magic. Refresher course, finding new path workings, and delving into new areas of study. Basically, a new way to look at things. Ooh, I'm excited. I get chills. I'm like a kid in a candy store when I go into a library. I kid you not. I go into my temple, I go into my personal library, I go to the city library, same fucking thing. I get lost in there. It's like, oh, book, I want. Ah, yes, I love it. And when Wang Limping, wrote, eat sour. What does that mean? It means you got to shovel shit, man. You got to shovel shit. You got to delve into it. You got to do it until you like it. And you know what? I look back at high school, grade school and all. I fucking hated school. I don't want nothing to do with it. And somehow I graduated. I still don't understand that. Obviously, Lucifer and Satan and all the demons, were looking out for me back then, even then. So, you got to give it up to them. But delving into these studies is going to benefit you. Question is, are you going to do it? Or are you going to make excuses? That's on you. But, let's see here. Jeffrey. Hey, long time, brother. Long time no see. Let's see. Keo. What was that? Sai Keo. Welcome. Abby. Welcome. Slobodan Bajeric. Welcome. All right. So, but yeah, I want you to take a look at your practices from various different studies, different perspectives, rituals, ceremonials. What's the difference between them? What can you do from a solitary practitioner? You know, are you going to do something big and elaborate, or like say what J.S. Garrett does, or J.D. Temple, or E.A. Koetting? You know, or do you want to do something more solitary, like say, let's go with Bokor Leonard Elmira, or let's go with Orly Stewart. How about J.S. Garrett? Or not J.S. Garrett, but let's go with S. Ben Cayenne, rather. You know, if you've ever seen his rituals, whew, damn, I've watched a few of those videos, and it's like you feel the power. You feel that. And just reading his books alone on the Black Fire, or the Smokeless Fire, rather, which are the two books that I was referring to, Volume 1 and 2. He's got a lot of things, which means I'm going to have to stockpile on salt. Yeah. I'm going to have to get another big bag and another big barrel of sulfur powder, too. You know, sulfur, brimstone powder. That I'm going to have to order again this coming month. Because I go through a lot of it. Yep. These rituals don't come easy and they don't come cheap. So, and if you're doing rituals for clients, which is what I do every so often these days, you're utilizing the same tools, the same items. So again, it helps to delve into this stuff. So go for it. Stop making excuses. Write it down. Make it reality, and just fucking do it. All right. So I always tell you guys, whatever you preach, always back it up with numerous sources, and always make yourself available to the public, because you are responsible for the things that you do and say. All right. For now, have a good day, a good night, and lock that shit in. All right. Have a good day and a good morning wherever you are. I want to thank people who have jumped on here with me this morning. And for those of you jumping on later, thank you. Feel free to hit that subscribe button. Feel free to hit that notification button. And until next time, have a good day.